The final DLC for Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope was a big moment for Rayman fans because, unlike some other 90s platforming mascots like Mario, Yoshi, Donkey Kong, Crash Bandicoot, this marked the first time in 10 years that Ray was featured in a big new console game. And as multifaceted as the Mario plus Rabbids experience is, everything needs a foundation. Everything has to start somewhere. And when it came to Rayman and the Phantom Show DLC, that was, of course, concept art, character design, just visual concepts in general. Long before 3D modeling and animations and gameplay, the team at Ubisoft Milan needed an all-new take on Rayman, one that was both respectful of his history and past designs, as well as one that felt fresh and new and fit seamlessly into the Mario plus Rabbids world. And that's where my very special guest today comes in. Lifelong Rayman fan himself and Ubisoft concept artist Giacomo Boni. Giacomo, it is such a pleasure to be with you. Can you tell the people who in the heck you are and what you do?
So my name is Giacomo. Giacomo Boni is my full name. I'm a concept artist, and that makes then also to character designer and visual developer. And I'm a concept artist for Ubisoft, specifically the Milan studio.
Can you just tell me like what your personal reaction was when you learned that you were going to be able to work on Rayman as part of the Sparks of Hope DLC? Like, what did it mean to you personally? Because I can tell as much as you're on this development team, you're a fan too. So what did it mean to you personally to be part of a team that after so many years brought Rayman back to life in a new game?
So there is actually in the behind the scenes documentary when we got the green lights when Rayman was confirmed as a character for the last DLC, some people went crazy in the production, and I kind of there's like a moment where the camera is like taking a shot of me, and I quite feel it personal, but it's absolutely true. I mean, I was probably one of the few people going crazy, like I was over the moon, because I already knew in a way that we could be able to, introduce this very expressive and exaggerated style of animation, and also the character bringing back these iconic characters was literally a dream come true. So when I actually got the confirmation that the character was going to be in the game, I was like, yeah, something like that probably.
That's great. That's great. And can you just clarify for me what your role was in Rayman in the Phantom Show? Am I correct in understanding that you created the 2D concept art?
Yes, exactly. So what I did basically was the blueprint in a way. I had to redesign him a little bit because the last version we've seen of him was like 11 years ago by now in Rayman Legends. And although the style in that game is new, it was still a 2D game. So technically speaking, the last time we saw him was 20 years ago. The last iteration that we saw of him in 3D. So we needed to, and again, the limitation of the hardware by the time, which was GameCube, Xbox, original Xbox, and the PS2, and they didn't have the same capacity, the same power that the Switch now have. So we needed to revamp him a little bit. And then again, after 10 years, you need to see, well, we've seen the same thing with Crash and Spyro. I mean, they are basically their original designs, but they are new, they are newer because they need to be. So that's basically what I was tasked to do. Also, I think that one of the smart thing that specifically my art director did was to trust somebody who loved the character, and I've been quite vocal to him, telling him that I really love the character. So I really loved working on this specific design, and at the same time, what I did was collaborating with the other departments, and that's also another thing that I really love to do. Because I mean, I love drawing, but one of the things that I love to do is to share my knowledge with people from other departments. And I would say that in this case specifically, this was really a golden opportunity. And I think in the end, the results, I mean, can speak for themselves because the character came out pretty well, if I may say so myself. So yeah, I mean, I worked along with the technical animators, which were really collaborative in a way, because like when you see something in 2D, it doesn't automatically means it could work in 3D. So there's a little bit of back and forth. You try something in 3D, it doesn't work, so you need to go back to the drawing board and fix it, and then go back to the 3D model and say, oh, maybe now it's working. And the cool thing in this case specifically was the fact that the technical artists really pushed on the rig of the character skeletons that you would then give to the animators to work on, because they really liked the expressions that you could see also in my drawings. Some of them are quite exaggerated, like really exaggerated. So you would need to push a lot for the character rig to obtain that. And I really like the fact that they were so keen on pushing for that to happen. So there was a lot of devotion in this regard. And again, the animators did a brilliant job, I think, interpreting the 2D drawings and translating them almost quite literally in 3D. So that's probably the thing that I love doing the most.
I'm curious, like, because I'm going to assume as a concept artist, Giacomo, you're a bit of a perfectionist. And
Yeah.
so I'm curious, like, as an artist, how do you know, how do you sense when a piece of art is done? Like, how do you know when to put the pen down and say, this is as good and as complete as it's going to be? Because I would imagine, especially because you are letting go of something and then it's going to transform into something else. Like you said, that process of 2D to 3D, I would imagine it's tempting to just keep torturing a piece and revising and changing things endlessly. So what's kind of your approach? Like, how do you cut yourself off?
That's a nice question, actually. So there are, I can share two sides of the same coin. So this happens a lot with the fact of keep iterating and taking a lot of time. This mostly happens with my personal stuff, like because as you said, and I would say unfortunately, because sometimes being a perfectionist is not exactly the best way to keep working. But I would say that specifically with my personal stuff, like my fan arts or my personal characters, I'm quite the perfectionist and I'm really picky about it. And sometimes that could be a bit, a double-edged sword because you never finish those pieces. And it happens to me quite often, actually. When it comes to production, it's that you need to deliver. So that's basically, and again, the things that you also have people above you in terms of position saying this is good, this is not good. If it's not good, go back to the drawing board. If it's good, go ahead. You have a pass for now. So that's basically the way it works. And I think professionally speaking, I think it's nice because again, you need to understand when to be ultra picky and when not to be. That is something that I really suggest to people who wants to enter the industry. I mean, you need to know the time and the like Pokemon. There's a time and a place for being ultra picky or not. So I would say the first thing that you need to know is to understand when it's right to be and when it's not right to be. Another thing that I would like to add is that you also, when you're working in a production, there are other people after you. So you also need to, give them time to finish working. So that's because being in concept art, you're the pre-production. So you're just doing the almost the very first thing. So you need to also know that people after you needs time to work in perfect conditions. So
The keeping with the topic of art, I'm curious in general, what does your process look like? I mean, do you have certain rituals before you begin working? What does your workstation look like? Are there certain digital tools you really rely on? Like, how do you just get inspired and kind of get in the right headspace to do the work you need to do?
one of the things that I always suggest to my students before even starting drawing is to find references. So you need to. Sometimes I even spend like 1 hour, if not even more, even 2 hours sometimes. Just scrolling on Pinterest or Google Images, just to find references of the task that I'm tasked to do. So in this case, I mean, in the case of Rayman, it's a little bit different because I had a lot of mental images in my mind because again, being a fan was really helping in that. But in general, like you need to have a lot of references. You can either have it in the monitor because now I have two monitors. I have my monitors and my Cintiq here. I work digitally, on my SynTick, which is basically like a second monitor, but you can also use this, which is basically a digital pen, and you just work on it. But yeah, I mean, having a lot of references, I think it's the right way to start, because even if you're a bit blank, if you have like an art block, looking a lot of references might help you to, just plucking out the little branch that is, stopping the gears from turning. So
Do you have any general like tips or advice to other 2D artists out there who want to break into the gaming space? Because I can tell you're pretty plugged in, not just with the Rayman community, but just sort of, online gaming communities in general. And I'm sure you see how much like just amazing art there is out there, how much amazing fan art there is. They would love to do what you're doing or what somebody else is doing, and they just don't understand how you go from being maybe like a really capable artist to doing it commercially at a studio. Any general advice or like kind of what makes for a successful concept artist in the gaming space?
this is not mandatory, I think but it's definitely something that helps a lot. And it's the fact that you need to have passion. Like, and I'm not saying just about the IP specifically. I'm talking in general of the market, the environment. So, like for example, I have a specific taste when it comes to gaming. I don't go for like ultra realistic and bloody games. Like for example, Call of Duty is not my cup of tea, but I know about it. Like I've seen videos of it. I'm a little bit documented about it. So that's one of the first things. Another suggestion that I would give, using social media, that's definitely a good way to gain visibility. Although in terms of visibility, I would suggest two specific websites. They might be a little bit controversial because they went the AI way, and one is ArtStation, and the other one is LinkedIn. Using LinkedIn, you can just it's almost like a social media for professionals for work, because you can see like open positions. You can put like a follow to the studio that you might like, and sometimes even the algorithm, once it understands what you're interested in, they starts to show you also, oh look, this studio opened a position for this and that. I basically log in every day. It's just I mean, now it's just for seeing what my friends and colleagues are working on, because you can also share. It's basically like a social media where you share your work in progress, your latest works, and that's also another way to connect with people. So that's definitely I would say one of the right ways to enter the industry. Speaking for myself, I was a kid grown during the late 90s and the early 2000s. So I was mainly hooked on reruns on TV of, like Disney shorts from the classics Disney shorts, so the ones from the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and as well as Looney Tunes shorts. So my inspirations mainly comes from that, but also from comics. I love to, and I actually started working in comics before moving to games. I particularly love it's called bande dessinée, which is the French comics basically. So one of my most favorite comics is Asterix and Obelix. So I really love the style that French artists mostly use, as well as some influences from this is called the Euro manga, which is basically the French version of mangas, and that would be like Wakfu, Dofus, I think it's called, if I recall correctly. And in general, it's that style that moved a little bit from the early 2000s till now. I think it's still quite popular in France. And all that mixed together with, of course, the passion for gaming led me at first to starting in the comics environment. And I worked for a year and a half for Disney here in Italy. Specifically, it's called Topolino. It's the Italian version of the Mickey magazine. And after that, I moved to Spain because I was also interested in working for games. Specifically, in my free time when I was doing comics, I used to lay down my own personal concept arts for my personal games. I don't know. I have no idea whatsoever how to program, but I always loved seeing like the behind the scenes concepts and character designs and sketches. Sometimes even the scrapped ideas. That's something I really love to see and study. Even when I was, I mean, since I discovered internet, my first thing to go with like, behind the scenes and stuff like that from movies, games that I loved. There was an opportunity for an open position in Spain for a mobile gaming studio, and I proposed myself, and eventually they liked what I had to offer, my portfolio, and I started working there. I basically made my roots learning also because again I shifted quite. It was quite of a 180-degree shift, going from comics to video games. So I learned a lot of things in that mobile studio, which was called Social Point. They're mostly famous for Dragon City. It's one of their top tier games, and I learned a lot from the people there. Actually, I really liked that experience. And eventually, when an open position for Ubisoft, I'm from Italy by the way, and I moved to Spain. When an open position for Ubisoft Milan opened as a concept artist, I proposed myself, and eventually I was lucky enough to be taken, to be hired. So here I am now. I've been here for almost 3 years now. It would be 3 years, I think, in June. So a couple of months, more or less. And it has been a blast for me. I mean, I really like this place. I mean, I've always been drawing. I think I've been drawing since I could hold a pencil in my hand. So around probably 5 years old. And again, I would copy basically. When I was a kid, I had this VHS recorder, and I had some taped VHS of older cartoons again. And one of the things that I loved to do was to keep pressing the pause button to stop the images, the frames. And I love to sit there and try to copy as well as a 5, 6 years old could do those frames. And those were specifically like again Looney Tunes, also Woody Woodpecker's cartoon. As a kid I loved Woody Woodpeckers, and again that helped me study a little bit. But I have to tell you the truth. Up until probably 19 years old, I never thought of this of a career. Like I was like, oh yeah, I like drawing, but I mean, it's yeah, there's people doing it for a living. But like for example, here in Italy, for me, it was kind of yeah. I mean, it's something that people can do, but I don't know how you make a living out of it. And after high school, I actually went to here it's called literally translated would be School of Comics. It's a school of comics here in Milan, which is also where I teach now. I've been teaching there for 3 years now. At the same time, I came back from Spain.
What was your introduction to Rayman? Like, what was the first Rayman game you played? What are some of your memories with the Rayman franchise over the years? Do you have a personal favorite Rayman game? What can you tell me as a gamer about Rayman?
The very first one that I actually saw and even played a little bit was Rayman 2, and it was specifically the PC version because my father got it. It was like in one of those, those big containers in video game shops that were like €9. By the time it was €9, they were like super cheap, and he bought it. And the thing that I specifically remember about that specific version of the game is that I'm quite positive it was because of the PC, because I was playing it on a laptop, and most of the times after the first level, the game would crash. And again, I was like 8 years old maybe, and I didn't know how to save it. So basically, every time I kept playing again and again and again, only the very first level, the Woods of Light. But the very first one that I completely experienced from start to finish, well, not exactly because finishing, it was Rayman 1, the very first one on PS1. And it was that and Mickey's Wild Adventures were my very first two games I owned for the PS2. My parents got me the PS2. I played PS1 at a friend's house, but the very first one that I owned was the PS2. And I really loved I specifically remember loving the animation, the intro, the animated intro that plays every time you put the game. And I really liked the characters. I mean, they had that specific because it was, I think, inspired by Disney-esque Looney Tunes cartoons. So I really liked the colors specifically. And another thing that I really loved about Rayman 1 specifically was the instruction manual, because back in the days, you would have these very thick manuals. And I remember, I don't know if in most of them, but in the ones that I had, you could scroll in between the pages and you could see like very small illustrations of the character. Like I specifically remember the illustrations for the bosses. And I remember sitting there with like one hand pressing the book to be open, and with the other one trying to copy the characters. So I would say that Rayman One was probably the first one that I experienced from beginning to end. Again, I didn't finish the game up until it was probably after high school because collecting all the cages in all the levels was quite challenging. So I played it with when I was a kid. But yeah, I mean, I really liked that one. That was probably the first one that I experienced.
Yeah, and I'm curious if you'd agree with this. I mean, certainly art and animation is important to like all the classic platforming franchises like Mario, Donkey Kong, Crash Bandicoot. But I always felt because my first game was also Rayman 2. It was on the N64. I had the green N64 cartridge that my grandmother got me. And I always felt that maybe even more so than those other IPs, that art and animation just always felt really, really like important and integral to Rayman. And that maybe that's why it clicked with you because you were so into like Looney Tunes and certain Disney cartoons that there was some kind of like synergy there.
Definitely, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Also, another one of my favorite cartoons as a kid was, I still love it because I find it hilarious. It's called Augie et les Cafards, I think it's called, which is Augie and the Cockroaches, something like that. A more modern version of Tom and Jerry, I would say. Also, Tom and Jerry, that was also another one of my all-time favorites. What I really like about that cartoon, specifically this French cartoon, which is produced by Xylan, the ones doing the Space Goofs series, was how expressive and how exaggerated these characters were. And I think it's also another thing that probably comes from French artist, I would say, when they're doing this very exaggerated style of tune. It's the fact that they're very expressive, and that's also another thing that I brought when I was tasked to work on the character.
Do you have a favorite moment or scene or battle or item or any aspect of Phantom Show? Like, is there one or two things that are just your favorite aspects of it?
I mean, probably the rent. I remember seeing when I was working on it. I love watching it because it's hilarious. And another thing that that made me love that specific scene is because one of my favorite Disney songs is the "Friend Like Me," the genie song from Aladdin. That specifically, I could see. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but I think there are a lot of things. Also, the fact that basically the singer is kind of torturing
Right,
the character in the song.
right.
And besides, there are a lot of things that I find really funny. Also, the little cameos to characters from the Rayman universe, like Glowbox or Mr. Dark. So again, as a fan, that was probably the golden moments. Also, I think the moment where the protagonists of the DLC are saying goodbye to each other. I think that's pretty. I mean, if you're a long time fan of the series, that's kind of a like a closure moment in a way, and I felt it quite a bit. So that's also another moment that I really like about the DLC. I mean, when it comes to saying thank you, I could probably stay here for an hour or more to say thanks to all the people. Well, I mean, when it comes to close colleagues, the ones I collaborated with, I would say probably the 3D artist that made the model, the very model for Rayman, which is called Salvatore Di Trani. You can find him on ArtStation, as well as the technical artists, the technical animators who worked on the characters, specifically Riccardo Stincone, which put a lot of effort in maintaining the 2D designs and shapes in the expression, specifically to the animation. When it comes to the animation, I mean, many people work on the character. If I recall, I might be forgetting somebody, but I specifically remember like Silvia Panicali. Uh, Also, who else? Let's see. Lucas Pico, I also remember. Um, oh, and now I'm forgetting the surnames. I remember also Arianna Morganti, which we collaborated in doing the scene. Oh, also another scene that I really love about the DLC. It's the first time that Raymond meets the rabbit. You know that scene where he's like squished against the wall. That basically was the perfect collaboration because Arianna reached to me and said, "Look, I'm trying to find a specific pose for the reaction to the character could have," and I basically did like this sketch of the character, and she basically traced it, and it was perfect. I think it was perfect because it's like PTSD reaction to the rabbits, and so that was another moment that I really loved. But yeah, there are so many peoples I really do not remember the name. Um, Also, Raffaele is another animator that made a really good job on the characters. Again, so many peoples I really don't remember them all because it was also almost a year ago. So uh, time flies and my memories also goes by. So
Well, wonderful. Well, Giacomo, this was such a pleasure. I really appreciate your time, appreciate you opening up and sharing all this with me.
absolutely, same to you, Tara. It's been a pleasure meeting you.
Pleasure too. Thanks, Giacomo.
Bye.
All right, well, if you enjoyed my chat with Giacomo, you can actually hear even more of it over at patreon.com/terapop. We chat about our shared love of Fumita Ueda's games like Ico and Shadow of the Colossus. Giacomo's black cat, which you probably saw in the video, is actually named Ico. So all my patrons have access to that extended discussion, including all members in the $2 Lum tier. Also, feel free anytime to swing by my Discord server, Terapop's Treehouse. And if you want to see more of Giacomo's work or connect with him on social media, those links are also down in the video description. So another big thank you to Giacomo, of course, and to Ubisoft for allowing us to do this. If you haven't already, go check out Sparks of Hope and its Phantom Show DLC on Nintendo Switch. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time.